Jump pork on my wrist. Jump pork on my wrist. What? Glizzy on my waist. What? Glizzy to your face.
Yeah.
Grimace to your shape.
Yeah.
Ocean to your gate.
Yeah.
That's the Aki way.
Yeah.
You a old alpha. Man, you washed up. Young baby Gronk. Got a D1 off of. Pulled up on Breaky Hill. Boomed up.
Yeah.
Then I pulled up in Kaiser Nat Cybertruck. Livy done.
Welcome to Discourse Dudes. I'm Trevor.
I'm Dylan.
And we're your Discourse Dudes. I don't want to be so presumptuous as to say that we are the Discourse Dudes. I feel like I'd probably get in some heat for that. So I will just say we are your Discourse Dudes for the next hour.
I'm thinking about the Discourse Dudes of our time. The luminaries, the giants.
Maybe one day you and I will have done what qualifies one to stand amongst those greater Discourse Dudes. I can only hope.
Jerry Seinfeld talking about airline food.
We got to talk about, though, April 2024 on Twitter.
Yeah, we're coming off, maybe licking our wounds a little from a pretty tepid March.
March was a little rough, although we were able to, we saw a lot of seeds planted in March. We met the Costco guys. Kendrick levied his first, albeit kind of, relatively polite diss against Drake.
A real discourse dude, plants seeds for discourse they will never see the shade of, as they say.
That's true. Is that what we're going to do on this episode? We're just going to have to make it through this list and find out.
Do April discourse showers bring me discourse flowers, to put it another way?
Will we turn out to be April Fools, or will it turn out that April is cool?
Or will we turn out to be April O'Neil sucking and fucking those Ninja Turtles?
Ooh, I hope it's that one. Let's get into it, though, starting with the first topic of discourse for April 2024.
Yeah.
Is it normal to do your primary grocery shopping at Trader Joe's?
I'm a big Joe head, so I'm already excited.
These first topics of the month are always a little slow, a little boring. It takes time to really get the discourse machine amped up. I think it resets at the end of every month. But this is a pretty standard one for the beginning of a month.
Sure.
I don't know if this was worth talking about for as long as I remember us hashing it out, though.
It feels like the cousin of a very old talking point, which is that you the best part of Trader Joe shopping is when you go to the real grocery store after to get the stuff you didn't get at Trader Joe's.
Sure.
Which I feel like has been a thing that people have been saying cutely since like the 90s.
Trader Joe's famously kind of known as being like the grocery store you go to for like your adult snacks, kind of, maybe.
Yeah, your peanut butter filled pretzels, your frozen spanakopita.
Do you feel generous enough to give this one the boom?
Seems like it would be a flagrant misuse of my Trader Joe bias if I boomed it. I think we gotta doom it, unfortunately.
That's fine. April starting off a little weak with our first doom. Next up, hosting a PowerPoint night could be a good way to learn about what your friends do for a living. So I guess somebody came on the site and pitched this idea of a PowerPoint night where you hang out with your friends and you all prepare PowerPoints about what your job entails.
So PowerPoint parties have been a thing for a while on social media where people make funny PowerPoints about stupid things. But what kind of new professional, I have no sense of joy, wants to fucking watch their friends do slide after slide about what they do at work? What a bleak thing to have to put together and then a thing to sit through.
I would never make people who are ostensibly supposed to be my friends that I like sit down and watch me deliver a PowerPoint about the ins and outs of like the financial appraisal industry. No, I would never do it. That is what it would take to get people to more casual people to understand what I do for a living, but it's just not valuable to me.
I think this was a small one. I don't remember this popping huge, but I do remember seeing some funny photoshops of silly jobs or whatever.
And there was like some solid backlash, speaking to kind of our own responses, like, if I come over your house for a party and this is what we're doing, we're not friends anymore. And I enjoyed seeing that response.
I think I'm comfortable enough booming this one.
I think there's enough reasons to give it the boom. Boom. Next up, woman interviewed on Subway feels strongly about candid girlfriends.
What?
This
is like a phrase that I feel just a slight twinge of some remote synapse deep in my gray matter, but I can't tell you anything else.
I sort of remember what she was talking about, but yeah, if you were to ask me to define for you what a candid girlfriend is today, I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like one of those buzz phrases that maybe we spent 10 minutes talking about.
Yeah, I'm probably going to give this one a doom just because, like, you know, if you're a woman, I feel like you got to be out there supporting other women, right?
Yeah, for sure. And also, who doesn't like a carefully posed girlfriend?
That's true. Next up. Oh, man, this was a big one.
Okay.
Do you remember this one? Millennial couple plans to throw inherited china in the garbage.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I do remember this one.
This was a talking point.
Yeah.
Was this a Reddit post that went around? I think this was a Reddit post. And again, weak pretext for discourse, but I think people kind of ran with this one. It was a Reddit post saying, like, me and my wife went over my in-laws' place and they were, again, trying to get us to take this very expensive china that they have and they never use. And this is like, you know, the 10th time they've tried to do this, and my wife just lost it and started yelling at my mother-in-law about how as soon as they die, we're throwing it in the trash.
First of all, sounds like a lovely dinner.
The things that I'm getting from this one, this dude's wife and his mother-in-law clearly have some kind of, you know, dynamic.
Right.
And this guy has been a consistent and amused observer of that dynamic.
It is funny. And it's funny that the way it's a very husbandy framing of this event.
I didn't get into it, but my wife and the mother-in-law, they were going crazy about the china. I was just in the corner drinking a beer. I'll let them go at it.
And then also the fact that, like, obviously this fucking fight has nothing to do with the china.
Yes. Like I said, there's clearly some kind of dynamic between the wife and the mother-in-law. That's all I got from it.
It's a funny domestic picture, to be sure.
I think so. And I think it's boom-worthy.
Yeah. And like, you know that there's also, if you dig deep enough, you're going to be like, well, you know, the actual cultural practice around how fine china gets to you anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be throwing it away.
That probably got worked in. I know there was a lot of people being like, you know, I understand not having the space for china, but like we need to be kinder to our family members. There's no reason we need to revel in like this abuse of them. It's
also a situation that I feel like many of us have been in, of a parent trying to pawn something off onto you that you just don't want.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Very relatable one. We're going to give it a boom.
We're booming it.
Boom! Next up was another one that I remember being quite funny. It was a video in which a man whose girlfriend bought him food seems frightened.
Yeah, she's like, do you like your food? Tell them you like your food.
Look at all this food we got. Look at all that food you've got there. This is our dinner. You're not going to eat all that right now, though. We're saving some of that for later. Do you like it? Show it to him. How good does it taste? And he's like, yeah, it's really good.
He does look so scared.
Just like a small broken man.
It's a great clip. Because sometimes I feel like people talk about like maybe I'm a little autistic and I don't always read the facial cues right. But every now and then one of these will come up with like, look how pissed off this lady is. And I'm like, I guess so. But this was like
undeniable, indisputable. Like there was body language happening here.
So much terror in his eyes.
Yeah. I hope he's okay. I hope that wasn't like actually indicative of anything scarier going on there.
Yeah, I am laughing, and it's possible that there's something terrible and dark happening. But it is just a pretty interesting, compelling piece of footage for sure.
I don't know if that should prevent us from giving this one the boom that it so clearly deserves.
Yeah, we got to boom it, I feel like.
Boom! Next up, we've got some music talk for the month. Vampire Weekend releases new album, Only God Was Above Us. People are very excited about this.
I remember it getting a lot of run-up, and then there also being like a what it means if you like Vampire Weekend like wave of discourse happening too.
Yeah, they are one of those bands that have always invited a large round of discourse about what liking Vampire Weekend means about your personality. They are a band that it's been impossible for people to like them without making a broader statement about it, or dislike them for that matter. They're a battleground band.
Do you think that the reason that Ezra Koenig has managed to like so artfully dodge his cancellation is because he wrote Hold Up by Beyonce?
I think that probably is 90% of it.
Okay.
The other 10% would probably be just that there's never been any really strong textural coverage of the reasons why he should, potentially be canceled. And something that I kept seeing posted that pissed me off so much were people in music journalism who were like, I can't believe Vampire Weekend is getting so hyped, even though all of this stuff about Ezra is out in public.
But is it?
No, it's not. It's like the most oblique references in other articles about things that have nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
If you were to respond to one of these people being like, what did Ezra do? They will link you to one of those articles and be like, it's all in here. Bitch, no, it isn't. Like, if I wasn't introduced to this article in the context of like it having information about Ezra in it, I wouldn't even know that he was the one being talked about in it.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because the subject of the person who was wronged is like, she's kind of famous, that lady.
Yeah.
She's got a platform for sure.
I think that has contributed to why she has not wanted to like come out and be more specific about any details, because like,
wow, I just went onto the Vampire Weekend Spotify page, and not only is there nothing on their top 5 from Only God Was Above Us, but there's 2 songs on their Spotify top 5 from Father of the Bride, both of which have more than 100 million streams.
That surprises me. I'm not surprised to hear that Only God Was Above Us did not really make that much of an impact on their top streamed, because I do feel like, much like we kind of touched on with Cowboy Carter, this album was instantly and completely memory hold. I feel like I haven't really talked about this. I haven't seen people talk about it for the last probably half a year.
Yeah, it was all run up and then nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
So just multiple points of this discourse annoyed me, between people getting very hoity about them being in the know about Ezra and expecting other people, unreasonably expecting other people to be in the know.
Yeah.
And just like you referenced, so many Vampire Weekend talking points that we've really done to death in the past. Those all got rehashed. I want to give this one a doom.
Yeah, I'll doom it as well. I also am just shocked that nothing from Modern Vampires makes it into their Spotify top 5. Weird. Anyway.
Moving on. Let's keep moving on. The East Coast is struck by a 4.8 earthquake.
Okay.
This was a surprising thing that happened.
I guess so.
Yeah. I'll give this one a doom.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I know that they don't have the California thing where one's happening every 5 minutes or whatever, but
yeah.
Something about a social media post about a minor earthquake that you're not there for, it never be hitting.
All right, so things are starting to amp up with some previous related discourse with this next one. We've got J. Cole responding to Kendrick Lamar's diss about him in that Future song we discussed last episode.
So I think J. Cole has some of the funniest beats of this whole story.
That's true, because, maybe we should take these next 2 bullets as one talking point here, because my next one, J. Cole apologizes for responding to Kendrick Lamar diss.
So funny.
Yeah.
So funny. And so funny that it's all packaged around an album called like Might Delete Later.
Yeah. Things are still really yet to take off for the Kendrick Lamar related discourse subplot, but this was a very good early episode in this arc.
There's even a third postscript about him reeling this back in. I doubt it would make the list, because I don't think it was like a big discourse pop.
No, but remind me what you're referencing here.
So much more recently, he like went on the record that the reason that he actually walked back the Kendrick diss is that Kendrick's team reached out to him and said, "Hey, we're going to be talking about pedo stuff with Drake. You probably don't want to wait in.
You're going to want to sit this one out, bro." That's pretty good. Yeah. What do you think? How do we handle this? Do you want to combine it into one bullet? Do you want to give both of them their own ranking?
Either we are dooming the diss and booming the walk back, or we're re-terraforming the list, creating one line item and booming it. And I don't really know what we're allowed to do.
I think just because Cole responding to the diss does not feel particularly doom-worthy to me, I think we should combine these 2 bullets and give them a single boom.
Right.
On the list, it is very funny to see them as 2 immediately preceding bullets.
It was so fast.
So I do not regret that, but for the purposes of our program, I think we just got to give like J. Cole response / apology, the boom.
Yeah, I'm going to give it the boom. It was a great setup and punchline.
Next up, we've got the solar eclipse. This was a pretty big moment for the year, I think. People gathered all around the country to look up at the sky as the sun was eclipsed by the moon.
Truly one of those happenstances, too, where, like, it is the timeline. There's almost nothing else being talked about.
And I think, if memory serves, you were able to see, like, the eclipse better from some places than others, but you were able to get some of it from pretty much everywhere, right?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the worst part of the country I was in the worst part of the country for this one. But I was in a really good part of the country for the last one. But it was also the salty eclipse posts were part of the fun, right?
Sure. I think this one, just because everybody was really able to participate and everybody did, I think this one's worth the boom.
I think you got a boom, and it had a stranglehold on the discourse.
It's cool to watch too. I was like in the direct path or whatever at my girlfriend's parents' place in Texas, so we got to see the whole thing, and it was really cool.
Did you lean over to her romantically and say, someday I'm going to be discussing the potency of this as a topic of discussion on a podcast?
I think I said something about wanting to like black out her hole or something like that. I can't remember. Moving on, a little more movie talk here. Alex Garland film Civil War features archival footage by Andy Ngo.
Okay, so what was this talking point? Because I remember Alex Garland Civil War and people talking about it, people really shitting on a lot of the like pre-release stuff about it.
Yes, that's actually a future bullet. Like we briefly touched on with that Love Lives Bleeding talking point. For a while, I don't know if this continues through the end of the year, it seemed like A24 could really not get a win. People were really dogpiling on them for a lot of questionable things. This being one of them, I guess. I'm not super familiar with this Andy guy. Are you?
Andy, no. It's a name that I see sometimes.
Is he some kind of like, I don't know, like controversial documentarian or something?
I think he's a right-wing journalist. And he's sort of like, I believe his big hard on is that he was the guy who was like, Antifa is doing this and that, back in the.
Yeah. So I think people were interpreting the fact that this movie, Civil War, included some of his footage. People were kind of reading that as like an actual collaboration between Alex Garland, the filmmaker, and this guy, which like, they were like, oh, I don't know if I want to support this movie.
Yeah, what's this guy doing? Trying to platform.
Yeah, like why are we giving him credit?
Yeah.
Why are we using his footage?
So a lot of weighing in on things that you don't have any context for.
So boring and fatiguing to me, this kind of like virtue signaling is what it is, really, right?
It is, yeah. Or it's either virtue signaling or it's like it's scrupulosity OCD that is tied into like partisan orthodoxy of feeling like your media diet must be so pure and so crystal clear leftist approved, or you're a bad man.
Ultimately pointless and like not really benefiting anybody.
Right. It does nothing for anyone.
Yeah. So I'm going to give this one a doom.
Yeah, I'll doom it too. I do think that the overall arc of Civil War and its release strategy and then its response is interesting. We'll see if any of those talking points can congeal into a boom. I don't know that they will.
Next up, we're still talking about movies here, kind of, because we had Gene Hackman seen in public wearing the same outfit he wore several weeks ago. So this is kind of a sequel to a thing that maybe did not get talked about enough to make the list. I think this was like, film Twitter latched onto this a bit, but the legendary actor Gene Hackman, who is very rarely seen in public these days, he's very old. Is he in his 90s by this point?
94, I believe.
Very old. Paparazzi caught a glimpse of him in public, and people were like, whoa, it's Gene Hackman.
Getting like a 7-Eleven coffee, I think, and a pack of smokes.
I think this must have been mid or late March. And then several weeks later, we got another picture of him and he was wearing the same exact clothes. And this was enough to get enough more people talking to the point where it made the list. I think that's how this all shook out.
I think, there are plenty of innocent explanations, but it does make you feel initially a little concerned, doesn't it?
No, I do not think. I remember this being my response. It is not weird at all to wear the same outfit weeks after you have worn that outfit previously, especially if your wardrobe is set up in a way where you have like outfits.
Yeah, I suppose that is a key ingredient, isn't it?
I think it's quite the coincidence that the 2 times we've seen Gene Hackman out in public within the past however long it's been, he did happen to be wearing the same outfit. I think it would be a stretch to like posit that like he hasn't changed since the last time we saw him, or like he only wears these clothes or anything. I think it's easy to jump to a conclusion like that for comedy, but I mean, it's a stretch for sure.
The 94 of it all and the being alone out getting a 7-Eleven coffee, looking real thin, looking real weak. It does make me just like a little part of my brain fires off of like, is somebody taking care of Gene Hackman?
I get that.
Is he struggling? Is he living alone? What's his situation?
Like I said, I think that's an easy result to jump to, but then if you think about it,
there's so many innocent explanations.
I don't know how I feel about this one though, really at all when it comes to the boom or the doom. Like there are multiple things here. Like, yeah, good to see Gene Hackman. Very funny that he was wearing the same outfit. I think that's enough to get into the boom category.
It is, yeah.
Boom. Pretty even month so far. We've got 6 in the boom, 5 in the doom.
Definitely not as like obnoxious as we were in March. That's for sure.
Here's another one phrased exactly as it was tweeted. It's kind of insane how many people do or have done coke.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, I have.
I've tried it exactly one time. It was offered to me by a stranger when I was at some kind of warehouse party in downtown LA.
And it was fentanyl spiked and you died.
And I died, yeah.
It is interesting that cocaine has become a casual party drug again. And like this feels like almost a little pre-tremor for Brat Summer as a future talking point, right?
A little bit. I also think this speaks to this weird dynamic that a lot of people on Twitter have with casual drug use. Mm-hmm. Like there's definitely pockets of Twitter that have a very like Puritan kind of attitude towards the whole thing.
Yes.
And then there are other people who I would say treat it as like a little too normal. Like, yeah, of course we're doing pink cocaine at the function. Come on, it's 2024.
Then there's also the people who are like incidentally straight edge just because like their social atmosphere is very square. And so those people especially, I think, were kind of at the forefront of this discourse. Like, man, it's crazy that there's just like coke at the parties you're going to.
I don't remember this too specifically, but I do want to say that I think this like might have even been tweeted by like, if not like a minor, then by like someone who was like 18.
Sure.
Too. Yeah. Like some like pretty young like person who's probably on Twitter to participate in like some pop star fandom or something. That's just, I don't remember it super well, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I think it's to me, this is an interesting, like out in the wild sociological occurrence. This discourse to me.
It kind of illustrates one of the values of like social media in general, I think, because it exposes you to the perspectives of people who, you don't necessarily get to hear from in like settings where people aren't just saying things like that they feel.
You're texting an avatar. So you're out there rubbing elbows with the people who are maybe extremely remote to your real life social experience.
Yeah. So there's some value in this one for sure. I don't know if the conversation that it produced was super illuminating or worthwhile. So again, I'm having trouble figuring out how I feel about this one.
Yeah, I'm kind of right in the middle too. I guess I'm inclined to boom it just because I do think it fits the bill of interesting conversation.
That feels fair. Let's go with the boom. Boom. Next up, the first trailer for Joker: Folie à Deux is released.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I don't know, first trailer, because what was the talking point here? Is that shot at the end where he smiles at the lipstick on the mirror?
I think so. I think this was truly the first trailer, and if not the first bit of promotional material released for the movie, it was at least the first promotional release where we really got a look at this thing after it felt like multiple rounds of discourse where people were just like, did you hear the new Joker movie is going to be a musical? That's crazy. Lady Gaga is in it. What's this thing even going to look like?
Right.
And here we finally got our first glimpse. And people were, I remember people being pretty hyped about this and being like, oh, looks kind of interesting.
It seems like the talk was positive. You got a little of that like classic meathead going like, this shot should be taught in film school stuff going on. That's always funny.
I remember film Twitter was discussing some of the more obvious allusions to like classic movie musicals that had made their way into the trailer.
Oh, colorful umbrellas singing in the rain.
Pretty funny, knowing the reception that this movie would ultimately be met with.
It's one of these where I never quite know what to do.
Yeah.
Because it's like we're thinking about a thing that happens later. And I feel like I kind of default to dooming this just because I feel like you have to an extent, to the ability that you can take these talking points hermetically sealed on their own context, you know?
If the event that kind of recontextualizes them for you is truly important enough, it's going to be its own bullet in the list, and we'll talk about it then, right?
I feel pretty strong that Folie à Deux is going to get a boom later.
Okay, so you want to give this initial discussion about it a doom?
I'm going to doom it just because I don't think it quite crosses that threshold.
Sure, that feels fair to me. Next up, we've got something of a sequel to the discourse surrounding the question of whether or not there is a Taylor Swift for men. I think this might have even been tweeted by the same account. It's another question. Where do we hear about the inner lives and pain of men?
Right. So it's so close to the first one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a direct sequel.
Again, another one that feels hardly worth talking about to me, because I feel like, where do we hear about the inner lives and pain of men? Probably like in every 9 out of 10 pieces of art, right?
Yeah, definitely.
How have you not seen this? Like, one, I know this is coming from, like, you know, a woman, and I don't understand how, like, you know, there's a popular complaint, I feel like, that definitely has a lot of validity in it, that, like, you know, throughout most art and media spaces, men kind of have been allowed to dominate those spaces and make art and media about themselves, pushing, you know, female creatives to the margins.
I think what's happening here clearly is that somebody has observed the actual gap of men struggling to emotionally communicate and connect with one another.
That's also something that is real.
And it has somehow conflated this over to media where it doesn't really apply.
Right. Like, I'm just not sure what these people think that, like, male artists are making art about. Like, nothing? Like,
I don't know. Weird.
Is Taylor Swift really the first person that these people think has, like, made art in a way that has spoken to the inner working of its audience?
That's part of it, right? That's part of it, is that some of these talking points are coming from people who have a mono diet, a mono media diet of Taylor Swift.
I guess that must be true. Again, how do you feel about this one?
I think we're dooming it. Yeah, I think we're dooming it.
Yeah, I don't know what else to do here. Next up, various films previewed at CinemaCon 2024. I think this is maybe related to the first look at Joker, but I think there were a small handful of other movies that people were consistently talking about for the several days where this event was going on. I can't remember what ones specifically, though, so that's kind of making me lean more towards the doom for this one.
Yeah, I can't imagine anything happened at CinemaCon that got anybody who wasn't, like, film Twitter focused that excited.
And CinemaCon, is that like Marvel movies and Star Wars shit, or like what do they talk about at that?
I don't know what CinemaCon is.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a real thing or a industry shit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't remember seeing anything.
Oh, no, I do know what it is. I know what it is. This is where like distributors show stuff to movie theater owners.
Okay.
So, like, if you are a franchisee, an AMC franchisee or whatever, you go to this big convention, they show you, like, a scene from The Flash, and then you're like, oh, The Flash is going to be big. I'm going to book it for this much or whatever.
Not very boom worthy for me. I feel comfortable with the doom here.
Yeah, I'm dooming it also.
Next up, we've got another death. The death of O.J. Simpson.
I almost forgot that this happened.
I did forget that this happened. And I can't really remember what the, like, big narrative that popped up in the wake of his passing happened to be.
Yeah, what do you say about a man like O.J. Simpson when he dies, right?
He's up there when it comes to people whose entire life was scrutinized by the public eye.
Hyper exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll doom it. I don't got anything to say about him that ain't been said already.
It definitely did not result in the same outpouring of attention that Akira Toriyama's death did. So
people emotionally sharing his freshman Heisman football clips or something.
I still remember where I was when I watched the car chase on TV. I'm sure people were posting stuff like that, but again, it just didn't stick the same way.
Yeah.
So we'll doom it. You were wondering if Hot Ones was going to get a boom on one of our previous episodes. I think if it is going to, this is probably going to be the bullet. Conan O'Brien on Hot Ones.
Okay, this is probably the most noteworthy cultural Hot Ones thing of the year, right?
This dominated the site for a few days. Conan O'Brien went on Hot Ones, and his performance on the program kind of sparked a just general outpouring of affection for his entire career. Really, people were like sharing their favorite Conan clips, just discussing his achievements throughout comedy.
Right. What this really turns into is a month-long, since we're talking about Conan O'Brien, ... here's a clip thing.
Yep.
And always using that language to preface the clip.
Yes.
And then invariably, it's the clip of Paul Rudd showing that clip from Mac and Me.
Oh, God. Yeah, that one.
Just showing it over and over again.
Yep. I feel like this is probably boom worthy though, just because
I'll boom it. I've never Conan's never been number one with a bullet, one of my guys, but I respect the man's craft and what he did for late night. And I think it's a classic cultural figure going on new media, doing what he's always been doing, and everybody kind of uproariously responding to it. This all feels boom adjacent to me.
I remember he brought some pretty good gags. I didn't watch the interview itself. I'm not really a Hot Ones watcher, but I know he was like
drinking from the bottle of the hot sauce,
and he was tucking the wings, happy eating wings into his jacket pocket and stuff like that. Yeah, he brought some jokes.
He was having a good time with it.
So that one gets a boom.
I'll boom it.
Boom. Next up, I really enjoyed this one. Grimes set at Coachella 2024 plagued by technical difficulties. This was a nice instance of Schadenfreude, just because Grimes has been one of the biggest, most vocal proponents of AI, throughout the last couple of years.
Yeah.
She's gone all in on AI. And so it was just very satisfying to see somebody who has really doubled down on something like that. I don't think, her set, the technical aspects of it had any AI incorporation or anything.
No.
But still pretty fun to see her wrestle with some technical difficulties.
And even beyond the AI stuff, just kind of being a consistent insufferability princess of our culture.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who I would say formerly would identify as a Grimes fan, I don't know so much anymore, especially based on the turn her public persona has taken. It's just great to see somebody get taken down a peg in a way like this when they deserve it. This one deserving of a boom, I think.
The culture enjoyed it. Let's boom it.
Boom! Next up, we got SNL trying to take another stab at a boom. I think we've had a few bullets about them so far on the list. All of them have gotten dooms. This one might have a bit of a better shot because we've got Ryan Gosling on SNL.
That's right, yeah.
I think the thing that you will probably remember from this one was the classic sketch where he was dressed up as Beavis from Beavis and Butthead with another cast member who was dressed as Butthead. They were just kind of sitting in the audience of a game show while the person who was on the game show seemed to be the only one who really noticed that they were dressed exactly like those cartoon characters.
Right. Or it was a Charlie Rose style interview with a public figure show or something like that.
Yeah.
I think the reason that this was big in SNL circles was slightly different than everybody else's reason of just enjoying seeing him dressed up as Beavis. Because I think that the actress who I could not tell you her name with a gun to my head, who was very badly and obviously breaking through the sketch, had a reputation of having been on the show for years and having never broken in her life.
Oh yeah. See, I'm not familiar enough with SNL lore to be able to appreciate those finer elements. My memory was that everybody in this sketch was like breaking character and could not stop laughing. And I thought that actually worked in detriment to the sketch.
Yeah, it's a fine line. You know, if somebody like cracks and then recovers, it can be good. If it becomes a big self-indulgent derailment, it's the enemy of fun, in my opinion.
I'll defer to you on this one though, because you're more of a comedy guy.
I think I gotta doom it. I don't think standing here, you know, as we're recording this, that this feels important or significant enough of a comedy moment of the year to me.
Was this also where he like officially said farewell to like the Ken persona and the I'm Just Ken song?
Who knows, buddy? I couldn't tell you.
Very fatigued by that whole aspect.
Yeah, all of this is 2023 backwash, in my opinion.
That's true. And, you know, maybe Doom-worthy based on nothing but that alone.
Yeah.
Next up, we got to head back to Coachella for a moment. Damon Albarn chides Coachella crowd for not singing along during Blur set.
Maybe we're a little biased in the amount of attention we're paying on this, but people were talking about it.
This broke through for sure. This did not get on the list purely because, you know, I am a fan of Damon Albarn's career. You and I are both fans of Damon Albarn's career. We followed it in its multiple incarnations very closely. And I think as a result, you and I both know that, interestingly enough, this is not the first, maybe not even the second time that this exact thing has happened to Damon Albarn.
It's like he doesn't know what a music festival is.
Yeah, but like just specifically, he's kept going on stage with these songs that like the specific audience is not going to have a built-in fondness for.
Right.
Maybe not even know.
They didn't buy a ticket to see Damon Albarn.
But nevertheless, he will expect them to actively sing along to the music. And when they do not sing along in a way that, you know, satisfies him, he will get visibly upset and start talking on mic about how they're not participating enough.
Didn't he follow this up by like... very, very grimly moaning in interviews that was probably the last Blur show ever?
No, what he said was, like, in the moment on mic, you're never going to see us again, so you might as well sing it now. It's very childish behavior from a guy who's been in the business for as long as he has. But, you know, he does come from that very petulant Britpop scene initially. So maybe those guys, you know, maybe they never lose that, you know?
It kind of feels like anybody whose career as a famous person started as a teenager are fucked.
Yeah.
Like they'll never truly achieve emotional adulthood.
Yeah. I'll give this one a boom, though.
It was funny. Yeah.
Boom. Next up, we had, I think, several conversations at once about pet-friendly but child-free spaces.
Okay.
So, like, maybe like a bar you could take your dog to, but, like, they're not letting children in or something like that.
Okay.
It's like, there's a very, a type of Twitter user that played a prominent role across multiple points of discourse, I think, this year, was the guy who does not want to see children when he's out in public.
The noisily anti-child internet people they're one-to-one with the loud, cranky atheists to me as being so insufferable.
Sure.
They have their own weird cutesy lingo like crotch goblin.
Ugh.
They're awful.
Yeah.
They're so annoying.
I don't know why I would expect this to be the case, but I just would. There's got to be a large crossover between like people who are interested in child-free spaces and like adult Avatar: The Last Airbender fans. Am I like wrong in expecting that to be the case?
I want to enjoy all of this childish media without having to see actual children.
Yeah, it's like, you know, the Incredibles 3 is finally coming out. Make sure you don't bring your kids because this one is for the adults.
Hey, breeders, why don't you keep the crotch goblin at home?
Ugh.
Look, this is once again, I also, just to be clear, deciding that you don't want to have children is a totally reasonable and rational thing that fits many lifestyles.
That's valid.
You know, deciding that you don't believe in God, also a reasonable, rational thing to come to. It's just it's these people who have sewn the patches of these feelings into their coat of many colors that really destroy my patience. Yeah, I hate this stuff for sure.
Doomworthy?
I say doomworthy.
It gets the doom. Next up, Courtney Love says Taylor Swift is, quote, not important.
Okay, I kind of remember this. The most important thing she ever said was that Billy Corgan was bad at fucking, or did she say Michael Stipe was? I can't remember which one she said.
I could see that being true for either of those guys.
Somebody was like, she came over after a show, somebody was smoking a joint and asked if she could hit it, and he was like, who's the worst at fucking famous person you ever fucked? And she said, one of those two. Yeah. I don't remember which one.
It's kind of a little offensive that I imagine you're mixing those two up just because they're two bald rock frontmen.
It is why. Yeah, it totally is why.
Yeah. I don't want this show to I don't want us to be accused of just blatantly alleging that any bald indie rock frontman is probably bad at sex. I'm sure there are some good ones.
I'm sure whichever one of them is bad at fucking, the other one's probably a superior, supreme coxman.
I would expect Michael Stipe to be the superior lover just because
he's so sensitive.
Not even that he's so sensitive, just that Billy Corgan is such a dick.
Good point. Yeah.
Is he really going to be?
He's a pump and dump champ,
Absolutely. Done in 5 probably.
Yeah.
This one, I don't know if it made that much of a mark. I'm fine dooming this one.
Yeah, me too. I'm in the doom category.
I'm sure the Swifties were very upset.
I'm sure they were.
More music talk up next. Drops of Jupiter by Train sucks, but it isn't even the worst Train song.
Because Hey Soul Sister exists.
Soul Sister probably the worst if if you just lay it out and look at the lyrics. Interesting that you said that because just a few days ago, I don't think this made a big enough impact to make the October list, but I saw somebody posting Hey Soul Sister being like, I never paid attention to the lyrics of this song, but it is truly despicable.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think actually what spurned that was an SNL sketch based on that premise.
Which one?
So there was a very recent SNL sketch. I want to say it was when Ariana Grande hosted, where somebody was playing, I guess the big reveal is he was playing the lead singer of Train, but you don't know that yet. And he's there to have dinner with his Black girlfriend's family and her.
Right.
And he's like, I wrote a song about your daughter and how special she is to me. And I want to sing it for you guys.
Oh, God.
And then,
yeah. I mean, something that could have really happened. For all
and then he just sings that song without alteration. And everybody just responds with horror as he goes.
As anyone should in polite society.
Anyway.
I would be willing to boom this one just because, I enjoy seeing people dunk on Train.
Train is such a funny band to think about.
I feel like, what was it? Early 2010s where they had that string of very popular songs, all of which were extremely terrible.
They did. And it was their second wave too, because they had a wave initially when I was a freshman in high school.
That was when Drops of Jupiter was big, right?
Right.
But then they came back almost as more of a novelty band. There was that one song about where the guy kept lying to break up with his girlfriend or something. There was that one where he fucked a mermaid.
Oh yeah.
Very, very weird era for the band.
Very weird. It also feels like they codified a lot of terrible millennial pop music moves.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. But this one, definitely boom worthy for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Boom! Next up, Quentin Tarantino scraps the film critic.
Okay, yeah, I definitely remember this and being interested in this. Quentin's in this weird spot, right, where he's publicly announced that he's only making one more movie. So pressure's on.
Right. For some reason, I don't know why he made that rule for himself, but it's been a long-standing thing. And for multiple years, I think it was, his final movie, he was on record saying that it was going to be this film called The Film Critic, about a film critic. There was a lot of talk about who was going to play the titular critic. I think for a while, Brad Pitt was attached. I think right up until this happened, Brad Pitt was going to be starring in it. But yeah, then he announced nope, that's not what, since I've only got one more movie left that I'm doing, I've decided I don't want it to be this one. So no more film critic.
And I don't know. I was interested as somebody who followed his career for my adolescence as a young film bro.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting beat in the development of this story about him having such firm constraints on his own creative career.
I don't think it's got boom energy though. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like just if I were to guess this one, I can't imagine it really escaped film Twitter by that much. I think it maybe just broke through.
Or if it did, it's only going to be interesting to you if you have a narrow specific interest in like Quentin Tarantino. I feel like
it involves kind of like you need a lot of background.
Yeah,
let's doom it.
We're dooming it.
Next up, another one we kind of touched on earlier. A24 advertises Civil War with AI generated posters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cursed energy, right?
Just, like I said, they're not able to get a win here. Especially not with the Civil War project.
Yeah, boy, Alex Garland is just a real casualty of the A24 L arc.
Yeah.
Is it an L arc or a villain arc, do you think?
I would say...
Does A24 have sad sack energy or like bad actor energy?
I would say at this point in their career, they're kind of in their washed era with like a little bit of a heel turn going on.
Yeah. Primarily, it's just that they can't stop failing. And then there's on top of that, some dumb choices that nobody likes of theirs.
I don't know. I feel like this one's probably worth a doom. Just like I'm so fatigued by so many different elements of this discourse by this point. I just did not want to read anymore.
This media used AI.
Yeah.
That kind of conversation. Where it's one of those things where I don't disagree with it on a fundamental level, but I find the conversation like very draining,
Yeah, so let's doom it.
One of those things too, where like Civil War, I feel like you take this arc as a in its totality, and it's kind of a boom. But it's like each of the little items don't have the boom momentum.
Too much working against it.
Yeah.
Next up, Taylor Swift releases new album, The Tortured Poets Department, and surprise announces that it's a double album.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Was the surprise announcement? It was like a thing that happened in the middle of the night, right?
It was like, I think it was an hour or two after the initial album drop. She was like, surprise, here's 15 more tracks.
I listened to it that night. It's such a complete non-entity of an album.
It's interesting because this specific move, I feel like, speaks to kind of the general thing that we saw happen with Taylor Swift that I feel like I wanted to touch on more when we discussed the way she originally announced this project on a previous episode.
Sure.
Because one thing I remember so specifically about that moment is that we as a public had already sat through multiple months of discourse and attention paid to the Eras Tour theatrical run, right? And just about that project in general.
Yeah.
And I feel like by the time the beginning of 2024 was rolling around, and by the time we've reached to the point where she did announce the Tortured Poets Department, we were all kind of looking forward to, maybe without expressing it, a period in which she would not be playing such a large role in the discourse and the media. Only to have that notion cruelly snatched out of our hands when she immediately revealed, like, no, I've got another album immediately coming out. We're going to be talking about this now for the rest of the year.
And the feeling that every step in this targeted assault to make the Tortured Poets Department continue to hang there in our discourse was on a whiteboard, 2 years ago.
Right.
Like the insidious engineering of it, of like, in March, then we're going to do this. Then in April, we'll do this. Then, it's got that vibe to it.
And I really do think there was something about this moment that truly broke like a certain genre person who is not very well predisposed to deal with a glut of Taylor Swift discourse, because the takes I started seeing about Taylor Swift between the announcement of that album and when it came out and, continuing to move forward were some of the most deranged things I have ever seen people who do not particularly care about a celebrity say about that celebrity.
Yeah, from a level of so completely not understanding what the person is, to have these like insane ideas about it.
It broke some people genuinely. And like I said, I think you can attribute that to the moment where we all thought we were going to get a little bit of a break, only for that to not be true. And something about Taylor just kind of releasing what we thought was just going to be another album. Oh no, surprise, it's like her biggest album ever, and she's going to keep releasing new versions of it going forward. I think, it's very representative of this very moment.
I agree with you, and you've kind of talked me into a boom. I feel like some of the things she does later on that are like more directly insidious and targeted at her contemporaries to try to hold them down, those stories might pop a little harder than her like secretly revealing that there were twice as many songs on this album after the promotional cycle had already finished.
That was definitely a consistent talking point about this album's promotional cycle, but it occurred in a way where it did not end up getting like a single bullet about it, but we could touch on it here.
Yeah. And it also feels like this moment that's outlined in the document is the peak of like swift derangement syndrome in the public, you know?
I think so. But we should just touch on her practice that, you know, persisted throughout the rest of the year, I think, of dropping a slightly new version of this album with a new like live bonus track or some kind of demo tacked on, conspicuously when another female pop artist was poised to have a very good or even personally historic chart performing week. Like people are like, oh, Charlie XCX is jumping ahead, but like Charlie XCX is going to get her first #1 album in the UK with Brat. Nope. Turns out that spot is going to go to the 6th version of the Tortured Poets Department with this version of But Daddy, I Love Him that was live in Paris.
There is a kind of battle of Britpop situation of having won battles but lost wars, in the sense that in the grander culture, none of the Tortured Poets material really penetrates and becomes like a song people hear or sing much.
It really feels like it hasn't. And I feel like that practice that she got into the habit of doing has only engendered tons of legitimate ill will towards her. I feel like going into this album cycle, she was a bit of an underdog, I think it would be fair to say, because the hate that she was facing was based on nothing except for like, you know, perceived oversaturation of the role she was playing in the discourse.
And maybe her like flagrant overuse of her private jet.
Yeah, that too. Genuinely, there's no shortage of legitimate reasons to dislike Taylor Swift.
Sure.
But here it feels like if you don't want people to hate you, stop giving them so many reasons to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Like act with a little bit more decorum.
And I think once the reasons to hate her become more legitimate, the discourse becomes less deranged.
Yeah.
But here, the discourse is highly deranged.
Right.
Because it's just about being it's about some part of you breaking because of her being popular.
The one tweet that I remember, probably almost verbatim, was somebody saying something like, just like with the most like truly mind broke delivery ever, being like, I finally have cracked the code to why people like Taylor Swift. They don't care about her music. They just see her as an icon onto which they can project themselves. She is the living embodiment of an air guitar. Just genuinely, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. It's big people. It's big like people like grape Kool-Aid because of semiotics territory.
All right, so that one's going in the boom category, do we want to say?
I guess we're booming it. I guess we are.
I wish we could give that previous one, the announcement, the boom, because that one really feels like it opened the floodgate doors for all of the derangement to really come out. But if we can't go back and boom that one, I would like to boom this one.
Yeah, I agree.
Boom! More music talk. I think we kind of missed a beat here just because it really did not make much of a splash. So we're skipping slightly ahead in this Drake Kendrick Lamar beef that will become even bigger.
Okay.
But here we've got Drake releasing a Kendrick Lamar diss track that utilizes AI generated voices of Tupac and Snoop Dogg.
Okay. Yeah.
So this was the second song that Drake put out in response to that Kendrick Lamar verse on the Future album.
Lest we forget, for all of the insane dunking that's going to happen on Drake for the rest of this year, let's not forget that it was Drake's hubris that began this ball rolling.
Yeah, I would say so.
He could have put one line in a thing about like Poppy's the big three himself or whatever. He could have easily just like respectably responded in one bar and then dodged all of this.
But instead, he was like, oh, you want to go? Okay, let's go. Here's one diss song. Here's a second one from Mr. Back to Back. We got 2 diss tracks in a row. What are you going to do, Kendrick? You don't got nothing.
Throwing rocks right at the hornet's nest, you know?
I will say, though, I don't think that first track he released, Push Ups, was super memorable. It did have some like relatively competent rapping from Drake when it comes to this era of his career, which he has spent a lot of time sleepwalking through. I don't think you can justifiably levy the same criticism at that first song. It was an okay Drake song. This one was very interesting, though, and even today, I still see this as the one legitimate punch that Drake was able to land on Kendrick.
The Tupac one.
You could tell by doing this little bit of AI trickery to make his voice sound like Tupac and Snoop Dogg, with these verses where he was chiding Kendrick like, oh, come on, man, rap against this Canadian guy. You're the best. You got to uphold our legacy for the West Coast. You could tell that really got under Kendrick Lamar's skin.
Yeah.
And as a staunchly AI guy, I think this was a pretty creative use of the software.
Yeah, it's like it's openly villain behavior, but that's what you want.
Real nasty shit.
That's what you want in a feud.
Yeah, basically digging up the corpses of Tupac and Snoop Dogg and like puppeting them so that they're mocking your opponent. That's a pretty smart move.
Yeah, I agree. This is the best blow he lands. I do think it's funny that one line he had on one of the diss tracks about Kendrick's always rapping like he's going to free the slaves. I do think probably Kendrick heard that line and felt a way about it, you know?
So I think this one definitely deserves a boom.
Yeah, I'll boom it. It was a big moment.
Next up, I don't even know if this qualified as discourse, but it was something that was so present on the site for a week or 2 weeks that I had to add it to the list. Again, this one received a question mark in parentheses because I truly had no idea what was going on here. But do you remember all of those posts directing you to look between letters on your keyboard?
Oh my God.
What the fuck was the deal here?
It was, first of all, it was insufferable because it was
everywhere.
Not only was it, and it was, the disgusting part was that it was the Click Farm blue check accounts were using it, but so were like people.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody who tweeted a thing that made you laugh earlier this year were doing this shit.
I think it was big throughout like multiple Stan Twitters.
This does deserve to be on the list. This kind of stuff should be on the list because we should hold people accountable for having done this kind of thing.
Sure, but discourse really only by the very thinnest definition of the word, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that technically the discourse around it is people being like, can we stop doing these posts?
Yeah, for the same reason in the future, I struggled on whether such items as like Mudang should make the list.
Yeah.
Just because like, were we talking or were we just like posting, you know?
Yeah, I understand. I think sometimes though the cultural force is like it's potent enough that it gets it here. I think this deserves to be here, and I have never been more excited to doom a thing in my life.
This is the most clear-cut doom we've had so far, probably.
I think so. Yeah. Doom of the year, perhaps.
Next up, Billie Eilish discusses masturbation habits with Rolling Stone and reveals that she dislikes whales.
Okay, yeah, I kind of remember this.
Yeah.
This is Billy's brand, right? Is I'm going to show up at the filmed interview and I'm kind of a weirdo, but I seem sort of approachable and I don't seem like a rehearsed celebrity.
Right. And I feel like this has been one kind of just step of many to just like incorporate like sheer horniness into her brand.
Yeah.
I don't know if this would really kind of venture into boom territory for me without the addition of her opinion about whales, but the fact that seemed to get so tied into the like larger horny fascination with this, that feels somewhat viable to me. I don't know if it gets it there for me, but I'm considering it.
I don't know if it gets it to boom for me either. I actually don't think it gets it to boom for me. This has like a sequel to a recent sequel where didn't she go on another interview and be like, I should have never said that. I'm never going to talk about my sexuality in an interview again because people were weird about it or whatever.
If that happened, it didn't make the list.
Yeah. I just don't think it could get it doesn't get all the way to boom for me.
I'm fine with dooming this one. Next up. Wouldn't it be funny if these trios bought 3 tickets for challengers?
Okay, yeah. So this is part of like the grander, there's a movie where 2 guys and a girl fuck each other discourse, right?
Yeah, there was like a movie that I feel like it was kind of misrepresented in the marketing, that this movie would have like poly vibes, because that's not really what is going on in the film itself if you watch it.
Right.
But it did seem to be a pretty big part of the marketing campaign. And as a result, you had a week on Twitter where people were like posting images of like 3 people or 3 characters with the comment, 3 tickets for challengers, please.
I almost want to boom it just because I feel like challengers discourse was big.
It's really great whenever the site can like, get together and talk about a movie, and that doesn't take the form of like Marvel stan Twitter talking about the MCU.
Yeah. And there isn't really a whiny backlash take either. It's just kind of like very earnestly discussing a thing. I almost want to boom it just for that. Even though I don't necessarily know if this format in and of itself is boom worthy, like using this as a watershed for all of the challenger discourse, I feel like it is.
Yeah, again, this doesn't really feel like pure discourse to me so much as like a meme format really taking off, which I tried to distinguish between the two of those things and exclude the latter from the list as best I could, because I truly feel like that is not genuine discourse. I feel like just based on the additional discourse around the movie going on and the site's general fascination with it, this felt worth including.
Yeah, it feels worthy of the list, and I feel like with a somewhat shaking hand, like I'm ready to push the boom button.
I could boom this one. You want to boom it?
Let's boom it.
Let's boom it. Boom! Next up, this is one that this doesn't have a recurring tag because I feel like it did take various different shapes throughout the year. But does feel like a forebearer of some stuff to come. Jerry Seinfeld says TV comedy is being hurt by the extreme left and PC crap.
Right. Did you see the sequel to this recently? I don't think it got enough of discourse to make that list.
This is a developing story.
It is.
I did see the most recent development where I think he went back in the meeting and was like, I shouldn't have said that stuff. That was stupid, right?
It was really interesting.
Yeah.
How people responded to it, because not only did he walk it back, he then gave the clear headed correct opinion about the subject afterwards, like very eloquently. So I saw some people saying, like, was he visited by 3 ghosts in the night? Because it really seemed like he had a true change of heart around it.
Sure. I wonder if he did have a genuine change of heart, or if at this stage he was just kind of talking shit for attention. Because I think the reason why Jerry Seinfeld was a pretty prominent member of like the entire like media circus throughout this year. I think it would be fair to say.
Sure.
He kept popping back up. And a reason why was because he was continuously in the media to promote that allegedly truly horrible Pop-Tart movie that he made.
Yes, that everyone who saw hated, and also nobody saw.
So I wonder if he was just saying the most inflammatory things that he could think to say,
yes,
to garner attention for that movie.
I like this theory, and it squares with what he says afterwards.
Yeah,
like because he doesn't just say like I regret it. He goes on to say like, yes, of course, the culture is always moving. The goalpost is always moving. The culture changes. It's your job as a professional, funny person to figure out how to make it work in the new atmosphere.
Right.
Which is like, it's the correct answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about booming or dooming this situation.
I think this one is pretty doom-worthy, if nothing else, for the fact that there isn't anything particularly novel for a comedian from another era of entertainment to be talking shit about PC crap in an interview.
Gen X boomer cusp guy shaking his fist.
And like, this is the like, probably all things considered, the like 4th or 5th most entertaining thing to dunk on Seinfeld for in this day and age. Like, there's
his teenage girlfriend, all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of stuff. So I don't think there's anything special enough about this one to get it into boom territory. Moving on. Another question that the site spent a few days ruminating over. Are there any men out there who have a favorite bird that is not an eagle?
No memory of this. Is this a thing? Or do men love eagles?
This was a thing. I think some woman got on the site. You got to imagine she's dated multiple men whose favorite bird was the eagle.
Right. And so she thinks it's endemic.
She thinks that like men have some kind of like Roman Empire relationship with eagles, I think.
I don't know if that's true, lady.
Me neither. I don't think I've ever listened to a man like wax particularly rhapsodical about an eagle.
Yeah.
If I don't have a favorite bird because I'm not like 7 years old. But like, if I did have a favorite bird, I don't think it'd be the eagle.
Just imagining her. Just imagining her as some terrible predator woman going around saying, like, how come everybody I date so obsessed with Spider-Man and dinosaurs?
Yeah. Are there any men who are not missing 3 to 4 crayons in their pack of Crayola crayons? They can never keep track of them.
Well, what did the site have to say about it? Were they like, yep?
I genuinely can't remember. I think this one's pretty much a clear-cut doom.
Yeah, it's a doom. Funny in the room, though.
Yeah. Next up. Oh, this is, within the last year or so, I have become like, it has come to my attention that certain pockets of the internet have a fascination with what they call lost media.
Oh,
which is just like music or images that they're unable to determine the source of.
Yes. It's either things that they remember from their childhood that they can no longer find.
Yeah.
Or, a random recording from late night radio in the 90s for a song that nobody can find.
This was allegedly a pretty big instance related to some stuff like that. Previously unidentified song, Everybody Knows That, is discovered to be from a 1986 adult film, Angels of Passion.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a funny one for sure. It's like a funny story.
Is it funny because it comes from like an old porno?
No, it's funny because it traces back to the origin of the guy who first recorded it from that porno and posted it on a Does Anybody Know This Song thing, but specifically didn't mention where he found it because he was embarrassed. And because of that, people spent the next decade trying to find it.
Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense. That's a pretty funny story.
It's a funny story that you find out, oh my God, this guy had just finished like beating it to like a hairy 80s porno.
Yeah. And he's like, what was that song? Hey, we've all been there.
Yeah.
I'll boom this one. That's pretty funny.
I'll boom it. Yeah.
Boom. All right. Now we are finally really going to see the heart of this story really take off. Kendrick Lamar releases 6-minute Drake diss track, Euphoria.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
This was a crazy ass freaking moment.
Really exciting. A fun, exciting moment to be there. Of feeling how my feelings for these two guys being a moving target, an evolving thing over the years. And then just like this huge moment where everything comes together into one beautiful point and you get something like this.
I feel like, both within hip hop culture and within like the audience of the culture over the last however many years, animosity for Drake has really been growing. People experience Drake fatigue.
Yeah.
The guy's not put out a beloved project in years and years and years by this point.
He's like half-assing everything, making the most miserable drivel.
And I feel like throughout the course of rap history, with a few exceptions, diss work is generally a much more subliminal, sneaky kind of thing than this example has going on with it. Like, I remember it being pretty genuinely crazy to me, as somebody who has even heard some of the more specific hip hop disses, to listen to Kendrick Lamar of all people addressing Drake of all people by name in the music, being like, listen, dude, I don't like you. Nobody likes you anymore. Here are the reasons why that is true. All of them are going to be representative of things that people have been saying for quite some time now. Just the degree of specificity and transparency going on here really did make this feel like a pretty crazy thing to happen, especially the fact that it was all being laid out over a 6-minute song.
Yeah, with all these crazy beat changes, all these crazy flow changes.
That was another thing, because the song starts off pretty laid back, and I remember listening to it being like, oh, so he's kind of gonna be chill about this, and that's going to be one layer of why this is more cutting. But then when it really starts taking off and he starts getting more specific and starts saying stuff that you've heard being said about Drake before, man, it really does feel like he really captured a lot of energy that had been building within the culture.
It was exciting, and I liked the reason why Euphoria remains my personal favorite moment of this cycle is that it wasn't predicated on some kind of a skeleton being exhumed, smoking gun, attempt to cancel you for the shit you did. It's just an outlining of how much of a clown this guy is, you know?
It's an assessment of the vibes surrounding Drake and the culture at this period in time. And like nobody could say that those vibes didn't exist.
I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk. I hate the way that you dress.
It's just everything about you. And it's not just me. The things I am saying are reflective of what everybody is feeling about you now.
We've canvassed the people and everybody agrees.
Like you kind of hinted at, this song, while also still kind of my favorite moment of the beef specifically too, personally, it would go on to become eclipsed by, a subsequent moment. Without spoiling too much in the future, Not Like Us, definitely the pinnacle of this beef. Euphoria, I think, really was the sea change moment, though, where it kind of leveled up.
The mascot of rap and pop music in the 2010s, mainstream, in the crosshairs of the most capable MC alive. And he's going harder on him than he did for his entire last album.
By this point, the dust has settled, barring any crazy future developments. I don't think we're going to see too much more from this going forward in the year. Of course, there will be future bullets about this on the list. This one, though, definitely getting the boom.
Gotta boom it.
Boom! Finally, we've got the last point of discourse for April 2024.
Oh, boy.
Very serious one, unfortunately. Kind of a tough one to end the month on. Pro-Palestine protests on campuses across the country turned violent as police cracked down.
Okay. Yeah, I remember.
Obviously, Palestine and Israel, huge looming shadow over the discourse in general. I can't really remember what events this bullet is specifically addressing, but I feel like there was a spike in this kind of thing at this point in the year that warranted this bullet happening on the list.
Right. There was a lot of talk in the media about college campuses having these massive multi-day protests that maybe kind of spill over into becoming like weird tent cities around campuses as kind of like clingers on rush in and et cetera, et cetera. And then, I don't remember like the iconic Kent State moment,
right?
Where the violence broke out.
Yeah.
If Aaron Bushnell self-immolating is a doom, then this seems like a doom too, because it doesn't seem to move the needle in any way.
Yeah, nothing as memorable in this period as like that event for sure. And, just combined with the like bleak vibes of this being the, discourse of the day on the site, I think it's a pretty obvious doom.
Do we ever get a Israel-Palestine discussion topic that booms? That's a weird thought. I wonder.
It could happen. We're just going to have to wait and find out, I guess. That's April, though. Just taking a look at the scoreboard. It looks like it was pretty close. We had 16 in the boom column and then slightly more 19 in the doom column. So the dooms did ultimately win out. Not the, technically best month for discourse, but it could have been worse. We had a pretty even mixed bag, I would say, this month.
Also, no real election discourse happening yet. That feels like a looming specter breathing down my neck.
I think that really fires up during the second half of the year, which we are kind of quickly approaching. We've got 4 months under our belts now. That was April. Next time we sit down, we are going to be talking about May 2024.
I can't wait. I just hope that we get a good, dumb, fun month and not a preachy, whiny, fatiguing month. You know what I mean?
It could go either way. We're just going to have to wait and see. Until then, I've been Trevor.
I've been Dylan.
And that's it for Discourse. We'll see you for the next one.
We're Discourse dudes. Of course we think Kendrick Lamar is a hack and can't rap as good as us. Actually, you guys, after careful consideration, we can't stand by what we just said. We're sorry, Kendrick. We love and respect and even idolize you. Please don't hate us.